going to start with some breaking news, an NBC exclusive, and frankly, a stunning disclosure from the federal government about medical experiments the U.S. conducted on unknowing patients back in the 1940s. Today, officials at the very highest levels of government will apologize. Robert Bazell is NBC's chief science and health correspondent. He has this exclusive story. Robert, good morning.
Good morning, Savannah and Chuck. The officials who will do the apologizing include Secretary of State Clinton and Health and Human Services Secretary Sebelius. From 1946 to 1948, officials with the U.S. Public Health Service injected gonorrhea and syphilis as part of an experiment into people in Guatemala without their permission or consent. And these people included people in mental institutions, included prostitutes who were set loose in prison in an attempt to see how the organisms would spread. It was all part of an effort to learn more about venereal disease after the Second World War, when sexually transmitted diseases had wreaked such havoc on U.S. soldiers. This is a horrible, horrible story. It has no redeeming value. The records were hidden in Washington for many years until a historian at Wellesley University named Susan Reverby found out about them. We're going to hear a lot more about this throughout the day, but there's going to be a lot of apologizing all around. Chuck and Sue.
Bob, this professor found out about it, and then what, presumably brought it to the attention of the U.S. government, or in other words,
no, she brought it to the attention of the U.S. government, and the reason, and she was studying and has written extensively about the Tuskegee experiments on syphilis on African American men, and of course this incident inevitably raises comparisons with that horrible incident, where from 1932 until press reports revealed that it was going on in 1972, U.S. government doctors were telling these African-American men that they were treating them for syphilis when in fact they were withholding treatment. So this is a very similar event, although it occurred in Guatemala on Guatemalans. There'll be a lot of apologizing to the nation of Guatemala and to Hispanic residents of the United States.
Bob, did the Guatemalan government ever have any suspicion about this? You know,
sometimes I think at that time they were fully cooperative, Chuck. Don't forget that there was a lot of politics between Guatemala and the United States in that time. In 1954, the CIA engineered a coup in Guatemala, but Guatemala was, in many ways, a puppet state. The government was, certainly not the people. Of the United States.
So they were hiding this as well.
They were hiding this as well. There were a lot of Guatemalan doctors and nurses were involved in this. They were, but it was under the authority of doctors from the U.S. Public Health Service who were in Guatemala. The samples, for instance, of the syphilis organism were taken from a lab in Staten Island and flown to Guatemala to be injected into people without their consent.
All right, Bob Bazell with the breaking news. And just to reiterate for people just tuning in, Health and Human Services Secretary Kathleen Sebelius will do a public apology today for experiments that happened back in the 40s. The U.S. government intentionally injecting Guatemalans with syphilis and gonorrhea.
Cooperation from the Guatemalan government. Obviously, you also heard that Secretary of State Hillary Clinton is also going to be issuing an apology.
So more on that as we go forward. But this breaking news just into NBC exclusively.